It's fascinating and ironic that so many people move here right before bad times, and the reason why they are moving here this time ultimately is the cost of living, but the reason why people leave is because they lose their job. Right now, everybody seems to be moving to Calgary, but it's not what you think. You see, Calgary has long been the place that people move to right before a recession. In fact, the irony is that the people who move here are the reason why house prices are in fact lower and the cost of living is in fact lower in Alberta. You see, most people move here because the cost of living is cheaper and the wages are higher, and that's seems very logical. However, it just goes to show that when you look at past data, when it comes to the migration trends, typically this happens right before a recession. We know that many different things are driven by psychology in our day-to-day lives, and it is no different when people are moving around. It's usually that they're following their emotions, and that's why they end up making terrible decisions like possibly moving to Calgary. The thing is, you only have to look at the prior data to understand how bad it could possibly get in Calgary over the next couple of years. And even right now, when there's record amounts of people moving here from other provinces, the unemployment rate was released today, and it's one of the highest in the country in terms of the populous provinces in Canada, which are Ontario, BC, Quebec, Alberta, and Manitoba. So the thing is, Calgary takes the crown in terms of the city with the most unemployment. And the thing is, people are moving here because of the cost of living. And I don't really blame them in some ways. It's just that they're making the right decision at the wrong time. And as we know, in terms of economic cycles, timing can be everything. People are moving here right now, and you've got literally the unemployment rate that is going upwards. So you know that people aren't looking at the economic reality of what is happening in the picture across Canada, which looks very bleak. And I know a lot of people could say to me, well, I'd rather be unemployed in Calgary or Alberta, but it's just a fact that if you're moving jobs, you are cheaper to fire. So that means that typically the people who move to places like Alberta right before a recession get fired the first, and then they end up moving back to the provinces that they came from, therefore exacerbating the problem of this boom-bust cycle. The thing is, this boom-bust cycle didn't just happen in 2013, 2014, 2015. It happened in 2007, 2008, 2009. It happened in the late 80s. It happened at the end of the 70s as well. So this is a cycle that has played out over and over again. What I find fascinating is just that we continue to make the same mistakes despite being able to look at past history and see what has happened. And although that doesn't always mean that the same thing is going to happen in the future, when you look at the economic indicators, like I said right now, are all pointing to higher unemployment in the future. You see, the Bank of Canada has hiked interest rates to a high level, the highest level since 2001. And Alberta has been a province in particular that has been battered by recession after recession. And that has led to businesses that have even survived have had to take on a lot of debt in order to survive. And this was back at times when interest rates were a lot lower. And this means essentially that these businesses are quite a lot weaker than other places. Oil and gas jobs, which are a big driver for economic growth in Alberta, typically the people who are working in those sectors, even though they only account for around 15% of employment in Alberta, people working in those sectors typically earn more money. However, they are easily laid off. They mostly are working as a contractor. So essentially, when times get tough, when the layoffs begin, they are cut off. And those people are people that live extremely high cost lifestyles because of the amount of money that they earn. That coupled with the fact that they're often away for long periods of time. So when they come back, they want to spend big, they have the money to spend big, and that's exactly what they do. But all this just exacerbates that boom bust cycle that I was talking about and is playing out right now in front of of our eyes. And why it's not a certainty that unemployment is going to continue to rise, we can certainly look at the probabilities of what's happened in the past to predict the probabilities of what's going to happen in the future, possibly. It's going to be very interesting moving forward to see what happens and see how this all pans out. And I think it's fascinating and ironic that so many people move here right before bad times. And the reason why they are moving here this time ultimately is the cost of living. But the reason why people leave is because they lose their job and they've moved away from their support networks and everything that goes along with that. The fact is that people who move jobs right before a recession typically are the ones that are going to get cut first when it comes to layoffs. And layoffs are happening. We're seeing unemployment increase across the country, specifically in provinces like Alberta, where businesses hold a lot of debt. So the thing is, the reason why I've made this video is essentially because I know a lot of people don't want to hear this. And I know somebody has to come out there and say it. And boy, do I wish I was the person who was coming out and saying everything is going to be fine. But it's just the fact that there is a whole real estate industry that employs a lot of people that are essentially making videos telling you, yes, move to Calgary, everything is great, everybody is moving to Calgary. And because of your human psychology, when you see a lot of people doing different things, you will generally gravitate towards that. Now, I do believe Alberta is one of the best provinces in Canada to live in, but that doesn't mean that Alberta is one of the best provinces to move to right now. In fact, I think the best time to move to Alberta is during a recession, because then you're going to be able to get a job during that recession, so you're going to know your employment is at least more secure than it is now, and you can also establish yourself more in the province, and then by the time the next cycle comes along, you won't be one of the junior people who has moved here essentially just following their emotions because they think everything is going to be better and the grass is greener on the other side. When we moved to Calgary and when we moved to Alberta at the end of 2018, when we went out and we were buying lots of our furniture and different things for the house, we were buying a lot of things off classified ads. And the thing that we found out was a lot of people were actually leaving during that time. That time wasn't exactly a great time. And it had actually been much worse before that, but it was still the case that a lot of people were leaving at that time. And people's attitude towards Alberta and Calgary was the polar opposite of what it is right now, which is the best place to come. The grass is greener on the other side. But now, having seen how this fascinating cycle actually plays out, I totally understand why people had so much resentment. It was because they had essentially been led down the garden path to move to a province which supposedly was going to offer them a more prosperous life at a lower cost of living, and it actually fucked up and screwed up their finances and was a bad decision. And because of that, that leads to a lot of people who are just very, very angry, frustrated, and upset when they are moving away. Remember, at the end of the day, if there's no jobs, if people can't find a job, if people have lost their job and fallen on hard times, then essentially they're going to have to find a job. And in terms of Alberta and specifically Calgary's labor market, it's incredibly volatile. The business sector in Calgary is not strong at all, despite what you hear in the media. You see it time and time again. So I would be very cautious if you are considering moving to Calgary right now or moving to Alberta, especially if you are considering buying real estate right now in Calgary. You are buying at all-time high prices right before a recession. Just think about what that could mean, and just remember why those real estate prices are lower to begin with. And I will see you in the next one. If you've enjoyed this, you might like that video or that video there. I want to thank you so much for watching this video. Take care. Bye-bye.